I thought I'd found peace when I bought my lakefront retirement home in Willowbrook, Lake Estates, Ohio. After 30 years at a Cran Steelworks running quality control, I dreamed of golden years tending the memorial garden of my late wife, Martha. Every morning, coffee in hand, I watched the sunrise over the lake while her roses, 27 bushes she had carefully selected over 15 years, perfumed the air. The garden was more than flowers. It was memory, love, a living tribute. For weeks, my mornings were perfect. Cardinals sang, dew glistened on petals, and I felt Martha's presence in every soft breeze. But then the peace shattered. A new neighbor moved in, Sloan Kensington, 43, a pharmaceutical sales rep from Columbus, designer workout clothes, a white BMW with vanity plate Sloan, one, and an attitude that made her entire presence feel like a territorial invasion. Within days, she was on the HOA board, declaring herself the neighborhood improvement coordinator, whatever that meant. 3 weeks after my move-in, I was sipping coffee on the dock when I heard the unmistakable roar of machinery. My heart sank. An excavator had appeared in Martha's garden. Contractors were tearing through decades of work, rose bushes uprooted, herb spirals destroyed, the meditation bench she used every morning demolished. I ran across the lawn in my bathrobe, shouting, but Sloan just waved dismissively. "That old garden was an eyesore anyway," she said, sipping her latte as if she were judging a home decor show. I produced my survey, but she waved it off. Her contractors continued their work, while she explained that the previous owner had verbally approved her expansion. Diesel fumes and crushed petals filled the air, a sensory punch that lingered long after the garden was gone. Among the ruins lay Martha's journal, pages of her plans, sketches for butterfly gardens, and notes about winter protection. Each rose was a story, a memory from Kentucky heirlooms, gone in a morning. The police dismissed it as a civil matter. The HOA said nothing, but my steelworker instincts kicked in. Document everything. I installed security cameras with GPS timestamps, capturing every violation, every trespass. Sloan wasn't just disrespectful, she was strategic, cunning, and completely unafraid to manipulate the system. That weekend, as I walked the broken soil, I realized something crucial: precision. Patience and planning were my allies now. I wouldn't fight with rage alone. I would fight with method. Every inch of survey stakes, every photo, every recorded conversation became a tool. This wasn't about revenge yet. It was about preparation. Understanding exactly what was mine, and calculating how to respond. When someone destroys what you love, you don't just react. You measure, record, and plan. And for the first time since Martha passed, I felt focus, control, and a quiet determination rising in me, like the morning sun glinting off the lake. After documenting every violation, I realized Sloan wasn't just careless, she was audacious. Her construction project extended across what should have been my property line. I walked the stakes, tape measure in hand, confirming each corner with precision drilled into me over 30 years at the steelworks. The result? Nearly 3,000 square feet of land she had claimed as hers. Deck, hot tub, pool house, built without permission, without approvals on land I legally owned. Sloan's audacity went further. Within days, she had filed multiple noise and complaint reports using different aliases, even her ex-husband's name, trying to make it appear as if the neighborhood supported her harassment. One morning, a county noise officer cited me for a minor violation, though I had followed regulations. It was intimidation, and I recognized it instantly. Years of quality control had taught me, if you're precise, measured, and documented, you hold the advantage. That weekend, I began rebuilding Martha's rose beds, carefully restoring what remained. Meanwhile, I analyzed HOA covenants and county property law. Anything Sloan did illegally became leverage. Her deck was over budget, over the line, and unapproved. A $50,000 violation waiting to be enforced. The HOA's architectural committee rules were clear. Unauthorized structural improvements incurred daily fines. 540 days of unapproved construction meant $54,000 in fines. Suddenly, this neighborhood bureaucracy became my tool, my silent ally. Security footage revealed another layer of criminality. Contractors had been tampering with survey stakes, trying to make Sloan's encroachment appear smaller. Tampering with legal markers is a felony, and I confronted the crew immediately. They left in panic. but it confirmed Sloane's willingness to cross legal lines to protect her stolen property. I now had documentation of harassment, illegal dumping, and attempted property fraud. I studied Ohio property law, adverse possession rules, and the accession doctrine. If someone builds on your land without permission, improvements can become yours. My research revealed a staggering fact. Sloane's entire pool and deck complex, her Airbnb business, even the stolen landscaping, could legally belong to me. I didn't act immediately. Martha always said the best lessons are learned when people dig their own holes. Sloane was digging hers, unaware that every move was being measured, recorded, and calculated. Then the idea came. A precise hydraulic fence, rising directly along my property line, splitting her hot tub and deck in perfect alignment. Consulting with Jerry Martinez, a retired hydraulic engineer from the plant. We designed a system, cedar panels hidden underground, hydraulic cylinders, smartphone controls. Each post would emerge exactly on the legal boundary, accurate to 6 inches. Poetic justice, engineered with love, precision, and a bit of Martha's meticulous planning spirit. The surveillance system confirmed what I already suspected. Sloane's desperation was escalating. One night, she snuck onto my property, armed with garden shears, clearly intending to sabotage what she thought were hydraulic lines running along my future fence. I watched her on the live feed. The pink bathrobe a striking contrast against the darkness of my lawn. Her movements were erratic, fueled by panic rather than reason. She didn't know the system had multiple, redundant lines buried 3 feet underground, each protected by conduit. Every connection I installed was deliberate, fail-safes in place, hidden and ready. For 20 minutes she toiled, unaware that every swing of her shears was futile, every cut irrelevant. I remained silent, letting the evidence build, knowing the officer I would call later would witness her desperation firsthand. When I finally dialed 911, the officer arrived within minutes, catching Sloane in the act of trespassing and property destruction. The smell of hydraulic fluid mingled with chlorine from her pool, a strange chemical signature of the chaos she had created. She tried to assert dominance, claiming harassment and asserting that she was being stalked. Yet the documentation was undeniable. GPS surveys, camera footage, and witness statements painted a clear picture of her violations. Sloane's composure crumbled. The professional veneer she had maintained, for 2 years, dissolved under the weight of mounting evidence. The local news, alerted by neighbors, began to cover her increasingly desperate behavior. Airbnb bookings began canceling as guests, saw footage of police cars and the trespassing incident. Her financial situation became precarious. She couldn't remove or afford the improvements she had illegally constructed. This was the moment I had anticipated. The precise confluence of legal leverage, engineering precision, and human psychology. Sloane had positioned herself as a bully, believing she could control everyone with intimidation. But her overreach had created a trap. Every action she took provided more evidence for the county prosecutor, the HOA, and ultimately my strategy. I monitored the hydraulic fence system one last time before the HOA meeting. Every post, every hydraulic cylinder, every automated mechanism had been tested and verified. When the fence was activated, it would rise in perfect alignment with the property line, bisecting Sloane's deck and hot tub. Poetic justice with engineering precision, a demonstration that needed no argument, no PowerPoint. The fence itself would become a living, visual testament to law, order, and careful calculation. The day before the HOA hearing, Sloane made her final mistake. The HOA meeting began with a hush of anticipation. 43 neighbors filled the small community center, their eyes shifting between the windows and the room's front. Through the glass, the hydraulic fence stood proudly, rising from the ground to split Sloane's deck and hot tub with perfect precision. It was impossible to ignore, a silent, wooden testimony to the property line she had violated. Sloane entered late, her usual confidence replaced by visible exhaustion. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed sleepless nights. She wore a wrinkled business suit, attempting to reclaim authority, but her demeanor was faltering. She immediately protested, accusing me of property terrorism, attempting to draw attention away from the undeniable reality outside the windows. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Phones came out. Videos were already being recorded. I stepped to the front, folder and laptop in hand. Calmly, I began presenting the evidence. Aerial photographs displayed her encroachment. 2,847 square feet of my property occupied by her pool, deck, and hot tub. Official GPS surveys, verified by county records, confirmed every measurement. Gasps filled the room. People whispered, some visibly emotional. The weight of her violations could no longer be disputed. Next, I presented evidence of her Airbnb operation. Screenshots projected her luxury lakefront rental, offering private pool and hot tub experiences, all on land she did not own. Revenue calculations were displayed. Approximately $38,000 earned from my property. Neighbors leaned forward, shocked. This wasn't just a property dispute anymore. It was clear exploitation. Sloan attempted to regain control, claiming legality and harassment, but her assertions fell flat against the evidence. Video of her attempted bribery of a county surveyor, documentation of trespassing, and footage of her 3 a.m. sabotage attempt on my hydraulic fence system. Even the sheriff's deputy present as a witness confirmed every charge. The room fell silent, tension rising to a palpable high. Finally, I projected photos of Martha's destroyed memorial garden, the 27 rose bushes carefully cultivated for 15 years, obliterated in one morning for a hot tub. The audience reacted viscerally. Some wiped tears, others shook their heads in disbelief. This was the emotional core, the human cost of her arrogance and entitlement. The combination of legal proof, financial wrongdoing, and emotional impact created an undeniable narrative. Sloan's posture sagged further. The once formidable neighborhood bully had been dismantled by facts, precision, and strategy. The HOA president called for a vote. It was unanimous. Sloan had 90 days to remove all structures, encroaching on my property or face escalating fines. Justice had been served with the perfect blend of engineering, law, and meticulous planning. The night before the HOA meeting, the tension reached its peak. Around 11:30 p.m., my security system lit up with motion alerts. Sloan Kensington was in my yard. Wielding a sledgehammer, hair wild, tank top and sweatpants disheveled. She believed she could sabotage my hydraulic fence system before it marked her stolen property. But the system had been engineered with redundancy, backup, hydraulic lines buried 3 feet underground, protected from tampering. Every step of her desperate sabotage played out on live security feed, the glow of night vision cameras highlighting her frantic movements. I called the police. She's attempting property destruction on my land, I reported. Within minutes, patrol cars arrived. Sloan, caught mid-action, attempted to argue her case, claiming harassment and asserting that I had set traps. But the evidence was indisputable. The decoy control box she attacked had triggered the activation sequence, sending the hydraulic fence to rise precisely along the surveyed property line. At 3:24 a.m., the cedar fence emerged in perfect alignment. 6 feet tall, 90 seconds from start to finish, each post rising smoothly, slicing through the center of Sloan's deck and hot tub. Water from the hot tub poured over both properties, carrying floating drink holders, pool lights, and noodles in a dramatic cascade. Sloan's sledgehammer hovered uselessly in her hands as the mechanical precision of the fence demonstrated boundaries. No argument could override. The police officers documented the scene, issuing citations for criminal trespassing, attempted property destruction, and disturbing the peace. Neighbors, awakened by the noise, filmed from porches and windows. Beth Tatum, a witness and ally, captured the event on her phone. Videos quickly spread on social media, making the scene a local sensation. Comments praised the precision engineering, the creative yet lawful solution to a long-standing neighbor conflict. Within days, Sloan's Airbnb bookings plummeted. Guests canceled, deterred by videos of the police arriving and the sudden flood of her pool. Her financial strain deepened. Her confidence crumbled. Every action she took, from bribery attempts to trespassing, became documented, evidence for legal proceedings. I didn't immediately celebrate. I had to wait for her next mistake. Her desperation ensured it was coming. I continued monitoring, gathering evidence, and refining the strategy for the HOA presentation. Each motion sensor alert, each hydraulic test, reminded me of the delicate balance between patience and precision. The morning of the HOA meeting, the fence was a silent sentinel, perfectly visible through the community center windows. It stood as both warning and proof. Encroachments would not be tolerated, and precision and patience were far more powerful than arrogance and brute force. The combination of technical mastery, legal preparation, and strategic patience had created the ultimate boundary demonstration. The morning after the HOA meeting, the neighborhood had gone from curiosity to spectacle. My hydraulic fence had performed flawlessly overnight, splitting Sloane's deck and draining her $15,000 hot tub. Water flowed in torrents, carrying floating lights and drink holders across the property line like a miniature river of justice. Sloane stood frozen, sledgehammer in hand, disbelief etched into every line of her face. Her attempts to sabotage the fence the night before had backfired spectacularly, activating the hydraulic system with poetic precision. The police were called almost immediately. By the time the patrol car arrived, the damage was self-evident. Sloane tried to explain, but even she couldn't deny the evidence. I presented the survey maps and legal documentation, calmly narrating the story of her encroachment and illegal improvements. The officers took notes, issuing citations for trespassing, attempted property destruction, and harassment. Every swing of her sledgehammer was now officially recorded as criminal activity, adding to the growing legal pressure against her. From the windows, neighbors recorded the event. Beth Tatum captured the chaos from her second-story view, while Mr. and Mrs. Johnson across the street filmed in disbelief. Cell phone videos went viral locally, turning the fence into a neighborhood legend. Comments flooded social media. This is what happens when someone ignores property rights and engineering. Revenge at its finest. The visual impact was undeniable, an elegant cedar line, demonstrating exactly where law and property intersect. The flooded deck and scattered pool items served as an unintentional exhibit for the upcoming HOA discussion. By the time the community meeting began, residents were already buzzing with excitement, eager to see justice unfold firsthand. The fence wasn't just a physical boundary, it was a statement of accountability. Everyone could see the consequences of attempting to manipulate or steal property. Sloane's reputation unraveled before the neighborhood. Her once confident demeanor was replaced by desperation, the glamorous image she cultivated evaporating under the weight of legal evidence and public scrutiny. Even her Airbnb business had taken a major hit. Guests canceled upon learning of the chaos, leaving her rental income slashed and financial vulnerability exposed. Inside my house, I sipped my morning coffee on Martha's memorial bench, savoring the precise execution of months of planning. Every detail, from the hydraulic cylinders to the smartphone control, had worked exactly as intended. The smell of chlorine mixed with the faint scent of roses, a reminder of Martha's garden and the balance between loss and justice. The combination of technical skill, legal knowledge, and patience had created an outcome that was both public and undeniable. Sloane had overstepped in every way, and the neighborhood had witnessed the consequences. The Willowbrook Lake Estates Community Center was packed beyond capacity. 43 residents squeezed into a space meant for 20, with a local news crew perched along the back. Everyone was buzzing about the hydraulic fence, which could be seen clearly through the large windows, cutting precisely through Sloane's deck and hot tub. Cameras, phones, and murmured conversations filled the air with anticipation. I arrived early, sitting in the front row on Martha's memorial bench. I'd temporarily brought inside for context. The faint scent of her roses reminded me of why this was more than just a property dispute. It was about respect, legacy, and fairness. Sloane arrived 10 minutes late, trying to compose herself. But the stress of the past few weeks had eroded her professional facade. Her hair was tied back hastily, her designer suit wrinkled, and dark circles framed her eyes. Confidence had left the room along with her earlier bravado. HOA President Jim Richardson called the meeting to order. "We're here to address the fence situation between properties 247 and 249. Lakeshore Drive," he announced. Sloane immediately rose, pointing a finger in accusation. "Dale has destroyed my property. This is property terrorism," the crowd murmured. Eyes flicked from her to the fence, then back to her in disbelief. I calmly stood, walking to the front with my folder and laptop. "Thank you, Jim. I think the fence speaks for itself. But let me provide context." I clicked to the first slide, an aerial view showing her encroachment. 2,847 square feet of my land occupied by her pool, deck, and hot tub, all built without permission. Gasps filled the room. Phones came out to snap photos of the shocking visual evidence. Next, I presented proof of her Airbnb business operating on my property. Luxury lakefront estate, $450 per night. Private pool and hot tub experience. All on land she didn't own. The room grew silent. Sloane's protests grew louder, but the evidence couldn't be argued with. Even her voice sounded weaker, more desperate. Then I showed photos of Martha's memorial garden before and after her destruction. 27 rose bushes, 15 years of care, heirlooms from Martha's grandmother, ripped out to make way for a hot tub. The audience's expressions shifted from shock to empathy. Mrs. Patterson wiped tears from her eyes, whispering to neighbors about the cruelty involved. I summarized the legal and engineering facts. All structures on my property, violations of HOA covenants, illegal rentals, and criminal activity documented on video. Sheriff Deputy Martinez confirmed citations for attempted bribery, property destruction, trespassing, and harassment. Sloane attempted to interrupt, but her words fell flat against the mountain of documented proof. The presentation concluded with a final slide. The hydraulic fence perfectly marking the boundary, a visual testament to the precise, lawful, and effective protection of property rights. As I clicked through the slides, the room's energy shifted from curiosity to stunned silence. The aerial photos clearly showed every inch of Sloane's encroachment, the pool, the hot tub, and the entire deck, all resting squarely on my property. I explained the survey methodology, the GPS verification, and how each post of the hydraulic fence had been installed to exact measurements. The audience could see the precision in every detail. I moved on to her Airbnb operation. Screenshots displayed her lakefront estate listing, charging $450 a night for amenities entirely on land she didn't own. Gasps echoed through the hall. Whispers of disbelief and outrage ran like a current between the seats. People's faces mirrored their understanding. This wasn't just a garden dispute. It was a lesson in accountability and respect for the law. Sloane tried to interject, claiming harassment and overreach, but her voice was drowned out by the overwhelming clarity of the evidence. Every photo, every video, every document told the same story. She had built on stolen land, profited from it, and disregarded both HOA rules and common decency. Even her attempts to bribe the surveyor and tamper with property markers had been documented. Then I presented the images of Martha's rose garden before and after the destruction. 27 bushes meticulously cared for over 15 years, now gone. Heirloom varieties from Kentucky, her butterfly garden plans, the herb spiral, all erased in a single morning. The room's atmosphere became heavy. A few neighbors dabbed at their eyes, and I could hear whispers of admiration for my determination to restore and protect her legacy. Sheriff Deputy Martinez stood and confirmed the legal ramifications. Attempted bribery, trespassing, property destruction, harassment. Sloane's protest grew increasingly frantic. But the crowd remained focused on the evidence, not her theatrics. The combination of law, engineering, and documentation left her cornered. I clicked to the final slide. The hydraulic fence, standing tall and flawless, perfectly aligned with the property line. It bisected Sloane's deck and hot tub with mechanical precision. The sunlight reflected off the cedar panels, casting a striking pattern across the room. No words were necessary. The fence itself told the story of justice engineered with patience, skill, and meticulous planning. Neighbors whispered excitedly among themselves. Some laughed quietly, others shook their heads in disbelief. The news crew captured every reaction, broadcasting live snippets that would soon make local headlines. Even Jim Richardson, the HOA president, allowed a small, satisfied smile. This was not just about property lines, it was a moral victory, a clear message that manipulation and entitlement could not stand against preparation and precision. As Sloane's composure crumbled, I'm evident that the strategy of patience and meticulous planning had worked. She was facing a room of witnesses. Sloane's final attempt to regain control ended in utter chaos. She bolted from the meeting, papers fluttering, hair disheveled, and eyes filled with disbelief. Her claims of harassment fell flat in a room saturated with evidence, videos, surveys, aerial photos, and witness testimony. The hydraulic fence outside stood as a living testament to every violation. cutting through her deck in hot, tub with mechanical precision that left no room for debate. The murmurs of the neighbors grew louder. Faces displayed a mix of relief, satisfaction, and astonishment. Everyone could see the scope of her encroachment and the audacity of her actions. The fence wasn't just a barrier. It was proof of justice executed with meticulous planning and patience. In that moment, it became clear that no amount of intimidation, legal threats, or bribes could undo the precision of preparation. Jim Richardson, the HOA president, called the meeting back to order once Sloan had exited. The room was heavy with anticipation as he acknowledged the unanimous vote. Sloan had 90 days to remove all structures from my property or face escalating fines. The crowd reacted with quiet nods and occasional whispers of approval. Justice had been delivered, not with confrontation or anger, but through careful strategy and unwavering adherence to facts and the law. 3 months later, Sloan's attorney reached out with a settlement offer. She wanted to avoid a public trial and the humiliation of facing irrefutable evidence in court. The terms were straightforward and precise. $55,000, $200 for retroactive land use, $18,000 reimbursement for my fence system costs, and $12,000 in compensation for the destruction of Martha's Memorial Garden. A written apology was included, published in the HOA newsletter. The total settlement, $85,200, reflected both the financial and emotional restitution she owed. The remaining challenge was ensuring compliance. Sloan had 90 days to remove her structures, or pay fair market value to purchase the encroached land, calculated at $380,000. She chose removal. Watching her contractors dismantle the pool, drain it, cut the deck into sections, and rebuild it on her own property was both satisfying and therapeutic. Every misaligned board, every drained bucket of water reminded her, and the neighborhood of the consequences of entitlement and negligence. The court granted my restraining order permanently. Sloan was legally barred from entering my property and required to communicate exclusively through attorneys. Her criminal charges were resolved through the settlement, yet her conviction for harassment remained on record. The hydraulic fence had not only marked a boundary, it had become a symbol of law, order, and justice. Neighbors who had initially supported her began to understand the importance of respecting property rights. Community dynamics shifted. The story wasn't merely about a fence. It was about standing firm against bullying. With Sloan's departure and the settlement finalized, the next chapter was restoration and healing. Martha's Memorial Garden had been my anchor through grief, and now it became a symbol of resilience and community. The 27 rose bushes, painstakingly replanted, thrived once more, each one a living tribute to years of care, love, and memories shared. The rare Queen of Sweden roses, Martha's favorites, flourished along the southern exposure as she had intended, their fragrance filling the morning air, blending perfectly with the scent of fresh soil and compost. The hydraulic fence stood tall, a marvel of engineering and precision. It wasn't merely a security feature, it was a visual reminder of the respect that property and legacy deserve. Students from the local community college visited regularly, eager to study the system, its design, and its flawless execution. I welcomed them, sharing insights about hydraulic engineering, smartphone-controlled mechanisms, and the importance of planning, patience, and exact measurements. The garden and fence together became both an educational hub and a symbol of personal victory. Neighbors began stopping by. Mrs. Patterson, who had initially hesitated to support me against Sloan, brought homemade cookies and warm words. "Dale, we should have stood with you from the beginning. What she did to Martha's garden was unforgivable," she said. Others shared similar sentiments, offering help with soil preparation, plant maintenance, and ideas for expanding the garden. Slowly, Willowbrook Lake Estates became a community, where respect for boundaries and for one another was tangible. The settlement money was used exactly as Martha would have wanted. The Martha's Memorial Garden Fund was established, providing grants to elderly residents struggling to maintain their yards. In 6 months, 23 neighbors had received assistance. Today, 29 families benefit from the program, which also offers workshops on plant selection, soil care, and organic pest control led by master gardeners. Martha's garden had become a gift that kept on giving. Sloan's fate served as a cautionary tale. Her rushed sale, loss of financial stability, and damaged reputation were stark, reminders of the consequences of entitlement and greed. New owners, a retired teacher and her husband, embraced the property with respect, asking permission before planting anything near the hydraulic fence, preserving both community trust and property integrity. For me, the most treasured memento remained the sledgehammer Sloan had wielded in her desperate attack. It sat in my garage, a tangible symbol of how meticulous planning, patience, and precision engineering triumph over brute force and chaos. Each morning, as I sipped coffee on Martha's memorial bench, the cardinal still visited the roses, and the gentle hum of the hydraulic fence during weekly maintenance reminded me that her memory and her garden were secure. Life had returned to a rhythm of peace and purpose. The sun rose over Willowbrook Lake, casting golden light on Martha's memorial garden. Each rose bush, replanted and thriving, released fragrance that mingled with the crisp morning air. I sat on the familiar bench, holding my coffee, listening to the cardinal Martha had loved so much. It was a quiet symphony of triumph, memory, and resilience. The hydraulic fence, now a permanent fixture, stood as a precise boundary between respect and entitlement, a testament to patience, planning, and engineering. Over the past months, the neighborhood had changed. Neighbors who had once quietly tolerated Sloan's antics now understood the importance of respecting property rights and community norms. Conversations about boundaries, fairness, and civility replaced whispered complaints and side-eye glances. I was approached daily by residents seeking advice about gardens, property disputes, and even DIY security measures. Martha's garden had become a hub of learning and inspiration, bridging technical knowledge with community care. The Martha's Memorial Garden Fund flourished. Elderly residents struggling to maintain their yards received landscaping assistance, expert advice, and hands-on support. Master gardeners led workshops on soil health, plant selection, and sustainable pest control. 29 families had benefited so far, restoring their properties and pride in their homes. Each restored garden was a reminder that one person's meticulous care could ripple out into the lives of many. Sloan's story ended predictably but instructively. She had sold her house at a loss, burdened by relocation costs, legal fees, and a tarnished reputation. Her failed attempt to manipulate property, lines, and exploit neighbors served as a lasting cautionary tale. Future residents, including the new owners, respected property lines, asking permission and engaging with the community responsibly. The hydraulic fence ensured clarity, but more importantly, it symbolized accountability and foresight. For me, the personal triumph was sweeter than any financial settlement. Holding the sledgehammer she once wielded, I reflected on the lessons of patience, precision, and strategy. Emotions had been kept in check. Principles had guided every decision, and the community had been strengthened. Every Sunday, the hydraulic fence underwent its maintenance cycle, its gentle hum a reminder of vigilance, preparedness, and respect for legacy. Life returned to quiet mornings and the simple joys of reflection. The roses, the lake, and the humming fence became the backdrop for peace. Neighbors smiled, community bonds deepened, and Martha's vision of a thriving, beautiful, and respectful neighborhood had been realized. Every bloom in the garden honored her memory. Every visit to the bench reinforced the importance of careful action. And every visitor who marveled at the fence witnessed a story of justice, patience, and ingenuity.